Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Karanisa Karisma Putri. I am from class 11 Social 2, and in this video I'm going to give you a brief explanation on two out of the four types of if clauses, precisely type 0 and type 1. Not only the fact that I'm going to give you and show you a brief explanation on how to use it, when to use it, and the general explanation of both of these type of clauses, I'm also going to show you examples of both of these if clauses. So without any further ado, let's get into the video, shall we? Alright, now the first one that I'm going to explain is if clause type 0. Okay, now you may ask, what is if clause in general, right? Now, if I can describe if clause in one whole sentence, it will be something that we anticipated or anticipate that may have an effect in the present time, the future, or perhaps in the past, or even something that we anticipate that will most likely happen either in the present day or in the future, or even perhaps that's something that will happen in the present or in the future. Then what's the difference between if clause type 0 and if clause type 1? Say if both of them something that we may anticipate that will most likely happen in the present and the future, or at least will have an effect on it, then what's the difference between these two? The difference between type 0 and type 1 if clauses is that for type 0 sentences are usually made from something of general truths, from something that has been proven statistically makes sense from a logical standpoint. Example of these will be like, and I'm pretty much showing on the screen right now. If people eat too much, they get fat. If you touch a fire, you get burnt. People die if they don't eat, etc. As you can see from all of those examples that I just gave you, all of those sentences have one very striking similarities. And that is every single one of these sentences can be proven true or right from a logical standpoint, making all of these sentences have something in common of telling the general truth, something that most people can agree on. Again, if people eat too much, they get fat. I'm pretty sure that not everyone, but like 99% of people could definitely agree on that logical standpoint, as you can see. Now, the thing is, if clauses is one of the more special one of the four type of if clauses. Type 0 is the only if clause that the words if can be changed to when. An example will be, instead of if people eat too much, you can change the if to when. When people eat too much, they get fat. Both of these words serve the same purpose, to describe a certain condition in those said sentences. Again, if people eat too much, they get fat, or when people eat too much, they get fat. It's something that we almost 99% of human population can definitely agree on. Alright, so to recap if clause type 0, first, both if and the main clause use present tense. Second, if clauses usually used to tell the general truths or something that can be proven by a logical standpoint. Third, this type of if clause, precisely type 0, is the only if clause when the word if can be changed to when to describe a certain situation in that said sentences. Lastly but not least, the type 0 if clause is usually used to describe a general habits of someone, some things that they repeatedly do every day, like brushing teeth, eating, etc. So that's all the thing that you need to know about if clause type 0. Alright, so the last type if clause that I'm going to describe in this video is if clause type 1. What is if clause type 1, you may ask? It is almost the same thing as if clause type 0. The main differences between type 0 and type 1 is that type 1 is usually something that we anticipate in the present that will most likely happen in the future. Now, it's not 100%, but it is most certainly will happen. Just like type 0, type 1 can also be proven by a logical standpoint. Alright, so let's just get an example. Say if it's rain, you will get wet. There's no way that if it rains, you will get burned. That's just basically out of the question. Or perhaps that you can see on the screen right now is that you will miss the bus if you don't hurry. I mean, that makes sense from a logical standpoint, right? If I don't go onto the bus early, then the bus will probably leave me. Well, I mean, the driver will probably leave me since, I mean, there's no way that the bus will just roll around on its own accord, but the driver has its own schedule. Everything has its own schedule. Say that if you don't follow that schedule, no, you don't follow that rules, then you will probably, be late and everything like that. Now, I just said probably, right? Probably. Listen closely. Probably. Okay, so as you can see, if clause type 1 is not really that different, right? And that will be true. And as you can see that if clause 1 is also sentences that can be proven true from a logical standpoint. Well, true, it makes sense. If I don't hurry, then I will probably miss the bus. But that's the thing. Probably. Sure, I will probably miss the bus, but it can happen. But at the same time, it cannot. I mean, it's different from would. It's most likely 95% will happen on the future, but it's not a guarantee that it will happen in the future. There's no one telling that I will miss the bus if I go on late. Maybe, God is being nice to me, or, the driver is being nice to me. That he didn't just go or follow the schedule. Maybe he just wants to take a nap or something, so the bus is still there even if I'm late. Or like, if Sally is late again, I will be mad. Now, from people's perspective, it makes sense. Not just from people, just honestly from almost everyone, right? If someone is dragging you down from an event that you want to go, that you have been planning from the very beginning, people will definitely think that you will get mad because that said person just ruined everything for you. And people are valid for thinking like that. I mean, who wouldn't think like that? But that's the thing. It's not a guarantee that I will be mad at her. It is almost 95% possible that I can get mad at her. But it is also not a guarantee that I will be mad at her. Maybe I'm just being nice on that day and, don't really care about the fact that she's late for 2 or 3 hours. As long as the fact that the plan or the event can still go on, as long as she's still with me, playing with me, then I'm just all fine and dandy. Like, why should I be mad at her? Because people are expecting me to be mad. Right? And that is also one of the main differences between if clause type 0 and if clause type 1. Generally, if clause type 0 is something that can't or mostly used to prove something that is statistically are true from a logical standpoint. If clause type 1, on the other hand, is also something that can be proven from a logical standpoint that can or may happen in the future, but unlike type 0, it is not a guarantee that it will happen. Sure, people will generally think that it may happen because it just makes sense, right? But just because people think that it makes sense, just because people think that it will probably happen, it doesn't mean that it will. Well, I mean, the world is full of possibilities, right? As once an old man told me, it is full of endless possibilities. Alright, so that's a not so brief explanation of both type if clauses, two out of the 4 type of if clauses, which are type 0 and type 1. So if I've made any mistakes in this explanation, then feel free to tell me, as I will definitely love to hear all the criticisms that you can, push, scream at me. As I said once before, wait, I'm pretty sure it's not once, probably twice that, maybe twice or even quadruple. I honestly lost counts on how many times that I've said that English is one of my favorite subjects of all time. If arts and music's class weren't there or subjects weren't there, then it will probably be my favorite. But as for now, it's my second favorite, just mainly because I slightly prefer music class, but or subjects. But yeah, I'm willing to learn more about English. One of my dreams is actually just to go on overseas and talk with overseas people, like not just from social media, but face to face. It is one of my biggest dreams of all time, and because of that, I'm willing to push myself up to the highest point where I literally cannot take it anymore, just so I can achieve my dream. Hopefully, in the future, I can go overseas, talk with overseas people face to face, and just generally living my dreams of living in either Finlandia or Australia. It's definitely two places that I, want to go abroad, and because of that, I really, really want to hear every single criticisms that someone can push into me. Someone that can push me, drive me to push into that limits. Alright, so enough with the ramblings. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.